background is going to be, let me see. It's going to be the green. I'm going to be using buttermilk, the color buttermilk for my background, and green. So I love this buttermilk. It's so rich and creamy. It's just a little, it's white. If you don't have buttermilk, you can use white. It's just a shade or two darker than white. Okay, so got it. All right. So, all right. So guys, welcome, welcome. I'm Ronita. I am a Purposeful Point, and I teach painting in person and virtual. And I'm glad you guys were able to jump in and paint with me. Again, I always encourage my painters to make the painting yours. If you want to go off script, you're welcome to it. And for those of you who do have the tracer, what I'll do is the background first, use the blow dryer and go ahead and dry your background. And then you can add the tracer, however way you want to do that. But for the most part, I'm going to freestyle for those of you who do not have a tracer. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, I want to do my background first. And you can see I kind of split it up, kind of the buttermilk in the middle and my green on the outside. But I am going to give it a line right here, my table, that table in the background. I'm going to add that to make sure that that's separated. And I'm just going to use I'll just use my buttermilk color to put that line there, because it doesn't have to be anything that's pronounced, right? Anything that's kind of stands out. And I don't know, I usually reuse my palette over and over again, but sometimes when I'm using mixing a color and I want to show you guys, I can't do that because I'm using that. So I'm going to use a fairly clean palette. So there's no reason why you can't reuse. The paint dries, and I am using acrylic paint, guys. I can't speak on any other, paint brand to use. I pretty much only use acrylic paint. Acrylic paint dries fast and it dries darker. Okay.
Hey,
So
Renita, sorry to interrupt. Do you mind holding up the what we're painting one more time? Ah, thank you. Okay, great.
okay. So we are going to, and welcome everyone. I'm glad you jumped in. I don't a couple of you guys I know have painted with me before. So just making sure I think everyone's here. Yeah. All right. So again, I just want to kind of make a line here, and that's going to be, like I said, my table. I'm going to put a line there, and I'll barely be able to see it, but I know it's there. Okay. Guys, I am using 11 by 14 paper. It's called acrylic paper, but it's not made out of acrylic or anything, but it just holds acrylic better, because acrylic is a water base, and it just holds the water a little bit better without buckling. And I love it. And that also keeps up space. I have been teaching these online classes for about 3.5 years. So I have a whole lot of paintings, and we almost do something different every 4 times a month, something different. And then also I usually will have the example painted out for you, and then paint online. So I have a lot. So you're welcome to use whatever you like. If it's canvas board. I know Danielle says she has canvas board. So if that works for you, that's fine. Like I said, I'm using paper. If you want to do 8 by 10, that's fine. You just have to wait for us to catch up with you, because you don't have as much paint to add to your, if you're using a smaller one. If you're going bigger, then let me know. But anyway, I just want to put a line there, like I said, and then my middle is going to be pretty much my I'm going to start with my buttermilk in the middle, and then as I get closer to the end, I'm going to add some green. And I'm just using a basic green. Let me see. So I'll show you what I mean. I'll start adding blending in the green towards the outside. But in the middle, I'm going to start. I have my largest. I love flat brushes. I have my largest flat brush. And I do like to dip my brush in the water to wet it. It helps move the paint around. And then also because I'm using the paper, it actually starts absorbing my paint. So I'll have to dip more often. But if you guys have a canvas that you don't have that issue, you have a canvas. So canvas is actually better. So I'm just going to jump in. And like I said, I want that buttermilk in the middle. And also, I want to say that we are not painting a wall. So don't worry about if there's some space, some areas that are not completely covered. You may have some areas that have more paint than other areas, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a solid opaque background. So I like the variations. It gives a texture, it gives it a little character. So it's okay if sometimes you have some areas that are lighter or darker is what I'm trying to get at. So that is okay to do that. Making sure my brush is nice and wet. And again, it doesn't have to be even. There are some, and it also doesn't have to be even too. You're not going to see much of that because we're going to have that purple right on top. So keep that in mind as well. Now, hopefully you have some green on your palette, unlike myself. So when it's time to start blending in the green. Now my painting, my example, it has like a more of a bluish green, but I'm just going to stick with just the green to add that in there. But if you have that color, that's fine too. Again, actually, you pretty much choose your colors, do what works best for you. So now, with me blending in this green at the end, I'm dipping my brush in my buttermilk, and I'm also going to dip my brush in the green as well. Make sure I have some green on my, because I kind of want to blend it. So very much. And I might put some green on there, and I'm going to go back into my buttermilk. Just kind of blend it. And you want to make that as heavy or as light. If you want more green, add more green. If you don't want a lot of the green, don't put that much on there. And also, if you feel like it's too heavy, you can just go back over top of it with that buttermilk. You want to put some more? Do I want more? Okay, I did that side. I'm going to go over and do the same thing with the other side, where I'm going to dip my brush in my buttermilk. Make sure I have some on there. And then I'm also going to dip it in my green. I'm just kind of going up and down. And with my brush kind of going back and forth with the buttermilk and the green. And if you wanted to add a little bit of blue, that's also an option. If you wanted that blue in there, that's up to you. And once this recording is done, I will send you guys the link so that you can go back and watch it again anytime you like. You will be able to, you know, if you wanted to do it again and kind of change up your colors, try a different color or something like that, that's also an option. Or if I'm going too fast and you need to, you want to go back and slow it down a little bit. Okay. Okay, so now I want to, where I put that line, I want to go across. I'm gonna be using white paint to do that, to go across this way. And I'm not gonna rinse my brush out. So it'll still have a little bit of that buttermilk in it, but it has the white. So it's not gonna be, I'm gonna go this way. I was going vertical. Now I'm going to go horizontal across that bottom, and I'm going to have white. And we'll come back later and add a little bit of purple. But for right now, it's going to be that white, just to make sure that it's kind of separated. Again, I'm not going to rinse my brush out because so that it won't be like a complete solid white. It'll have a little bit of color to it because I still have that buttermilk in my brush. But it'll go across and it'll be white. Gonna take it across the bottom. And because it is white, it does have a little bit of color to it, but it is white. So if I miss some spots, it's okay. And because it's white, I probably wouldn't be able to tell if I missed it or not. So there. So now we want it to dry. Now we're not gonna wait until it completely dries or anything. So this is where you can go ahead and pull out a blow dryer to blow dry it, and then get it nice and dry. And then when you, if you have the tracer and you want to add that to your canvas, that's fine. But again, I'm just gonna kind of freestyle it. Now for me, it doesn't, because I'm using the paper, it dries quicker. I kind of wish I had used the canvas board since I'm putting so many layers on here. Okay. So now hopefully we're ready to add the flowers. I'm going to work with the vase first. And where are we placing our vase? So it's pretty close to the bottom. So I'm going to come really close, about right there, with where it's going to end. And where I'm going to place it is, it's going to be probably about halfway is where my flowers will begin, probably about halfway down. And where am I going to place it in the middle? Um, and I say this because some of my painters are like, what is want me to give dimensions or so. So I'm going to pretty much start probably about a third of a way in between my edges, guys. So, or I want to say a third, but just a little bit bigger, because I like to fill up the page. And so a lot of time painters have the tendency to paint small, but I do like to take up the canvas. That's what it's there for. So let's not waste space. So make sure you give it some width. And so basically I'm going to outline the vase first. You can use a pointer brush, or for me, I like to use my flat brush. And instead of painting horizontally, I turn my brush vertically and use the edge as makes great lines like that. And then the fun thing about this, if you feel like, oh, it's not the right size, I didn't put it in the right place, just repaint it and then we'll fill it in. You know what I mean? We'll cover up those lines either way. So like I said, I want it about in the middle, and I want it to come about right here. So I know it's going to be there. And then, so I want to fill it up. So about a third, halfway. See that? Don't be concerned or stressed about the size or width or how it looks, because this is abstract art. It's okay. Now, I highlighted this. I have two shades of green. I have a darker green, like a phthalo green. A phthalo green has a little bit of blue in it. It has a blue hue to it. And so that's what I'm going to kind of do with my vase. Again, you choose and decide what you like. And so, but I use the lighter green, so because my darker green will cover that all up. So I won't have to worry about my lines or whatever. I'm going to put that on my palette. You can go ahead and just, I'm gonna fill my, paint it with my green, and then I'll just kind of put shadows, add shadows using my darker, that's my phthalo green. But I'm just going to use my regular green to cover in the vase. And if you don't have the phthalo, just use the green. And to add, to make a darker shade of green, just add a little bit of blue. I would say black. You can also add black, but you have to be really careful with black because it'll dominate and kind of take over. So I always suggest blue because blue will make things darker as well without taking over like black will. And remember that top of the vase, it's not even going to be showing. It'll be covered by your flower. So I have that covered. And you guys are welcome to unmute if you have any questions. The only thing that I ask is if you know you have a lot of background noise, I do ask for you to mute them because yeah, it's really rough sounding for us if there's a lot of background noise. So I have my, and again, as far as being even, you can see that mine looks a little bit off, so it's okay. The beauty of the flowers are going to take away from whether or not your vase is even or exact. Again, this is abstract art, and abstract art is subjective. So, and a lot of times you do these paintings, I've had people and it's like, oh, my husband's going to talk about my painting, or my friend's going to talk about my painting. You know, when they see your painting, they'll be excited that you painted. Wow, you did this. They don't even look at what you're seeing. Okay. So I still have my the green in my brush, the lighter green, and I'm dipping my brush also in my darker green. And adding a little bit of shadow. I'm going to show you the example. So I'm adding that shadow right along there around the bottom, just kind of on the sides. So in my example, it's kind of painted where you can kind of see through the vase, but this vase is not going to be see-through. So we're going to work with what we got. Okay. And that's what I always like to say. If you don't have a certain color paint, just work with what you got. And if your green is still wet, your darker color will kind of blend in a little bit. So you might have to wait a little bit to make sure that it's dry if you want to do something a little bit darker. So right now I have my darker green, but I don't want it to look like there's a line between the two colors. So now I'm taking my lighter green and painting over the line that's between, to separate the two greens. And what that does, it blends it. So now it kind of blends in. It doesn't stand out as much. I do like And so although my dark green looked really dark, it's really not that dark. After you spread it on, it looks really dark on my palette, but after you spread it on, it's not as dark as you think. I keep wanting to make it darker, but again, that's what I tell you guys. I'm not listening to my own advice, is that if your paint is still wet and you're trying to make it darker and put a second coat on there, the only thing you're going to do is just move the paint around on the canvas. As you can see, that's exactly what's happening. So I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. I'll come back later and add some, make it a little bit darker. And I mean, it's fine like that now. It still gives it the dimension. It still looks, it doesn't look flat. It does look, it has some dimension to it because of the different, the variations with the darker and the lighter. So I'm letting you guys see. So next, I'm going to jump into my my purple. We're going to go to our purples. And I do have 2 shades of purple. I have a, and then I say purple, but keep in mind that most places, most paint brands don't really have a purple. They have a violet. So I have violet, and then also have, I use a lot of deco art, guys. That's pretty much everything that I use when I'm painting this way. When I'm using this type of painting, I do use deco art. So this is a purple. It's called a dioxazine purple. So it's a little bit darker. And again, it looks like it's really dark, but just like that phthalo green looked really dark, it's not as dark as it looks, but it is darker than what my violet color is. So that's my, so I want a darker and a lighter. And if you're not using purple, you want to use a darker and a lighter. If you don't have, let me see, you can make those same colors, whatever you choose. If you just have violet, if you want to make your violet color darker, you can add black or you can add blue. Now, blue and red make up purple. So it just might be a more bluer tone because you're bringing out more of the blue of that purple. So you decide if you want to add a little bit of black or you want to add a little bit of blue. Either way, they'll both make it darker. And then, or you can have your violet and add white to make a lighter violet so you can have the colors that you want. So now I am going to just kind of paint the, I'm going to start with my, what do I want to start with? Do I want to start with my, because you can kind of go either way with this. I'm going to start with my dark and then use my violet to make the add highlights like that. I'm going to use my dark, give my flowers a dark base, a dark base. Okay, a dark base. I'm going to start with these 4 bigger flowers to add those on there. Okay. And like I said, we're layering. So that's why it's okay if things are not solid and opaque, because we're painting layers. Layers, I love it. It gives it more dimension. So like I said, I'm going to take my purple, my dioxazine purple, and place my flowers. And they're kind of off-centered. I don't have like 2, well, they're almost like 2 directly on top of there. But so now we are, it doesn't have to be exact. That's why I always want to say that some of my buds, that bud's going to come down on the vase, is positioned a little bit closer. And it's not going to be a perfect circle or anything like that. And then you can see that. Let's see. It's almost a circle, but I don't want it to be. Let's see. And then also, this also is a lesson in translucent paint. Some paints are more translucent, more opaque, more translucent. So this purple, and I say it's translucent because you can still see that dark underneath. So it's all good. So there, I'm going to put one right next to this one. And as you guys can see, I'm just not, you can make a circle, but just make sure that the flower is not, the outside of the flower is not a complete round circle. So we have 2 buds right now. How you feeling about those buds? Hopefully good. But, I just didn't like what I use for my brushes, guys. I always suggest actually use what works best for you, and know that I am pretty much always going to be using a flat brush unless I specifically say that I'm switching maybe to a pointer brush, but I'm usually using a flat brush or a filber brush. I very seldom I use it, but I just want to introduce it to you guys. A filber brush. This is great for blending. It's perfect for blending. You can see how it's shaped. The filber brush is great for blending. If you're trying to blend something like when I was blending here, that would have been, and it actually depends on what you're blending, but that would be great for that. But I like the shape as well. So, and sometimes I've used that and was like, hey, this is blending too much. That's not what I wanted, but I did like that shape. So, but I'm always using my flat brushes. I have them in various sizes. I have a 1 inch. I have I think this is like a 3/4 inch, and this might be maybe a half. Don't quote me on those because the numbers are not on here, and I can tell you the numbers, but it doesn't matter because all brands have different. So now I'm going to add this other one. This one is kind of off to it, almost off to itself. Um, Again, this is kind of abstract, although it's off to itself. It almost looks like it's out there by itself, but it's not. I just like the way it looks there. And I'm going to add one here, the top. And it's off centered. I'm okay. If you're okay, I'm okay with things being a little bit off centered. And as you can see, like I said, I want to cover that canvas. I want to use as much of the canvas. So you can see that that top one goes almost to the top. You don't have to take it all the way to the top, but it's almost to the top. Okay, guys, that's up to you. So those are my 3 main flowers. Let you knock those out. Make sure you get those added. And then there's a few small ones, not a few, there's several small ones. And those are up to you how many or if you want to add those. So I'm going to start with my left. I am a southpaw, I'm left-handed. So I have a tendency to start towards the left. So that's where I'm going to go. I have, if you can see, get up a little bit closer. I have the smaller buds here that are not open. So I'm going to add those 3 buds there. And this one, that one's face kind of up. This one is gonna like its face kind of down. There. Then one that's a little bit smaller. It's over here. And I'm kind of using my brush kind of almost in a circular motion to make them. Okay. Now I've got my 3 little buds over there on my left. And guys, I'm just using like little short strokes. So now I want to go over to the right and add some in. You can see how those are placed. Again, they don't have to be exact, and you don't even have to add as many as I have. But again, you guys know I like to fill it up. I like to make it look full, if anything. So, and again, like I said, I'm going to kind of making a half C's is the way I like to make. So I'm going to take this one, and I'm not making a full curly C, but just like a really open half C or whatever. I say half C is a half, right? But you can see how I curved that one like that. And then I'm going to go to the other side and do one opposite. Same thing the other way. And that's how I kind of like to make my buds. Give it that open look, openness. Okay. And I have one that's still closed, but I'm going to do that same method. Like I said, that little C. And it's not really a C, but that just kind of gives you, I want to make sure you understand the motion that I'm using. Okay. More. Put in some smaller ones, guys. So I just about have all of my flowers placed. And I just also want to make sure that you can see I have one that's laying on the table on the surface. Put one down there as well. The same kind of C motion as it helps kind of give it that shape that I want. And also have a couple petals. A couple petals down there as well. Okay, so now I want to I want to go back in. Just depends on how wet your buds are. I'm going to start with my first one. So hopefully it's dry enough to go back. I'm going to put a second layer because I want it to be a little bit darker in some areas. Okay. And again, I'm going to kind of make that circular motion to put these strokes in there because your strokes are going to show and kind of define the flower. So you guys see, I'm still kind of putting some strokes in there around here. I'm not going to cover up, fill in the whole flower. I'm just kind of make some edges, some areas a little bit darker. I'm concentrating on kind of do it in order of what I created because I'm hoping that those are dry enough for me to put the okay, this one's the one that I did as well. Just hoping that it's dry because like I said, if it's not dry and you're adding those in there, you're just pushing the paint around. And I want the paint to stick, especially right here on that vase because it's so translucent on the vase. It's going to be a little bit darker there for me. So as these, after we finish putting a second layer of the darker purple, we're going to switch over and do some leaves. That way it'll give the flowers a chance to dry. And again, I'm putting darker paint strokes on the flowers, but I'm not covering the flower. I'm not completely covering it. I'm just putting some strokes on there. In some areas, I keep saying strokes, but some areas I'm making darker and leaving some areas from with the original paint layer. All right. You guys see that there's some areas that are a little bit lighter, some that are darker, and that's okay. I'm going to leave it like that. We're just going to let that dry. Yep. And then switch over to paint some leaves. Right now, I'm just trying to get the paint out of my brush. I have a lot of paint in. There we go. I didn't want to waste it. I can be a little frugal that way. Okay. Now we are going to paint, add some leaves in there. And as you can see, again, it's kind of abstract. Some of those leaves are just kind of out there. They're not even connected. So don't stress out about that, about whether or not it's connected. But we're going to add some leaves. I'm just going to use my green. On my example, I use like an olive green, a dark or a light, but we're just going to use the green that we used for the leaves. I might add a little bit of something to it so there'll be a different shade of green. So let me see what I'm going to do with that. So I want it to be a little bit different. Now I kind of wish I had made my vase a teal color. That would have been totally different from green. I think originally in my head I had teal, but then when I start pouring paint, I didn't. So I'm going to maybe add a little yellow to my green. Just make it a yellowish green. How about that? Just to make it just a little bit different. Just a different shade of what we're working with. Yeah, I'll think about that. So this is a terrible brush. Mix that together. So I just added a little bit of green and a little bit of yellow. But if you're mixing up a paint, like I said, just I want it to be a little bit different than what my base is. If you are mixing up a paint, make sure you mix enough paint to paint everything that you want. So that's always an issue. You mix up a paint and then come to find out you didn't mix enough. And then the next time you mix it, it's not the same shade. So I'm also dipping my phthalo green, my darker green, just to give it a different color, different shade of green. And I'm going to suggest that you just kind of do what works best for you. Because I'm going to add this green, but I am going to come back and add a lighter green as well on top of the leaf, but you can just do that with just adding white. Okay, so there, that's the green I'm going to go with. Actually, it looks just like what I'm using, but we're going to rock with that. We're going to go with that. We're going to go with it. It's all good. So I'm just going to sprinkle some leaves here and there. And this is a time where I want to go down to a smaller brush, even smaller. And if you have maybe a bigger pointer brush like that, that would be nice to make your leaves. Can you see that? You don't have that, or you can just use a pointer brush. I'm just making leaf shapes. Let me show you that I'm kind of a curve there, and then come back on the other side with a curve, curving out from what you just did, and then just fill in the middle. That's how you make a leaf. That's how I'm making my leaf. And some more. And more. And again, I'm starting on my left side because I'm left-handed. I have issues, don't I? Some of them are touching. They don't have to be. You can make some over top of the flowers. Just kind of, I'm just thinking about balance. Adding leaves. to kind of balance what you think might balance. So you're just putting leaves wherever you feel it's appropriate, guys. I got some whatever you feel is appropriate. For me, I always like to suggest maybe some music, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't listen to music. I put on the Hallmark Channel, the Big Bang Theory, and that's what I like to do while I'm painting. And I like to paint flat. I know people it's like, oh, I have to get an easel. No, 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 you don't. I like to paint flat. And I didn't do it while I'm with you guys, but that if I'm painting flat, then I can kind of turn my instead of moving my arm and twisting my arm to get at an angle that I want, I just turn the whole canvas. So a lot easier. Okay, guys. So I know that my green is still wet, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to take my darker green and like when we did the leaves, I did one side kind of bowed out, and then I did the other one on the other side and bowed out the opposite way. Instead, I'm not going to do both sides. I'm just going to do one side of my leaf. One side of my leaf with the dark. Okay. Just one side with the darker color. So that gives, and it doesn't have to be exact, guys. Don't worry about if it's not neat and exact. But doing that kind of gives your leaves a little bit of dimension. They don't look as flat. And not that they probably looked flat, because I have my paint variations are really, you can really see them on my painting. So my leaves, they did not look flat. But I want to put one side just to give it a little bit of dimension. I really meant to use a turquoise for that vase, and I guess should have wrote that down so I can remember. A bad memory. Oh, okay. Now with that, our purple flowers are definitely dry. So you guys go ahead with finish up your leaves. While you do that, I'm gonna grab my violet. And so we use the darker purple. Now I'm gonna add my violet to my palette so I can start adding a little bit of dimension to my to my vase, to my flowers, adding some violet to my flowers. And you guys, I know mine looks a little bit off. So
Yeah?
worry about it.
Isn't that a little high?
Shannon, did you have a question?
Okay.
Now, Shannon, did you have a question? I usually can mute, but I can't. Okay, there it is. Now I can do that. All right, so now we're going to, like I said, I'm going to grab my violet, which is just my shader, lighter shade of purple. And I'm going to show you that I'm just going to add some lighter strokes to my my flowers. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that light's hitting it. So I'm going to, where's the brush that I'm going to use? I don't know what I did with my brush. I don't know how that could happen. It's not like I left. Oh, there it is. I need to move some of these brushes off my, let me move some brushes. Like I couldn't find my brush. This one needs to go in the garbage and put that back. Didn't use that one. There we go. So now, again, like I said, I'm going to take my violet and to lighten it up, I might add some white as well, but for right now, I'm just the violet. And again, I'm not going to paint over, like we went in and put a second layer to make it darker. I'm not going to paint over those sections. I'm going to paint in areas outside of that section. And guys, the middle, we are going to add black in the middle. So keep that in mind. So, oh, you know what? Something that I wanted to do while I had this is go ahead and add that shadow underneath my my vase. A little bit of shadow. And underneath the vase, remember we had a little purple shadow. Doesn't have to be exact. Okay. Have fun like that. Okay, and that's with the violet that I did that. Okay, so now I'm back up here, my violet. And the thing about it is like right now, that violet, it looks light enough to add some different variations for me in my flower, but it may dry too dark for me. So that's why I talked about maybe adding some white with it. Now, can you see that I am making strokes on top of the first layer that's not as dark, but and it, kind of gives it some character. Gonna put a few on the buds. Now, if when this dries, it's not light enough for me, I will come back in and add some white to my violet and lighten it up a little bit. You see, and that's so fun how that the lighter color kind of gives it some dimension. It kind of brings it out. Again, I'm painting areas that are not in the with the darker, that I didn't use the darker layer. And then again, keep in mind, we are going to come back in and put a little bit of a, even though I'm painting over the area, we're going to put that black in the middle. Well, it's just a few strokes that we're putting in there, guys. Just a few strokes. And don't forget that flower that's on the at the base of the at the base of the vase. Yeah. So after we get those highlights in there, and let me see, probably will. I'm trying to see if it's dry enough for me to determine if I need to add some white to my purple. So, but it's looking good. That's fine. I will, I'm going to add some black to my tray because I want to add some, a little bit of dark, a little bit of shadow. Like I talked about, I want some on my vase, that darker. I could probably, I'm going to see. I don't feel like my phthalo green will be dark enough for me. So let me see. Yeah, see, it just, although it's a dark color, it's translucent so that it's not very dark. It's not as dark as I would like. So that's why I'm going to grab my black paint. And I did my brush in my black paint. I'm going to wipe some of it off my brush because it's easier. Let me see how I want to phrase this. It's easier to start with lighter than it is to go darker. You go darker, then try to go lighter. It doesn't work. So I wiped some of it off so to make sure. I'm going to see, put it on here to see if that is too dark for me or not. It's kind of dark, but I can still see some of the green in there. So I'm kind of okay. So I suggest that you kind of do the same thing. I am putting some shadows down here. So now I'm not dipped my brush. See how thin the black is getting? Well, you might not be able to see it, but it's still kind of not a lot on my brush. So that works out great. I'm gonna put a little shadow over here. I still haven't dipped it in the black again because I want it to be thin because I still kind of want to see that green underneath. And like I said, black, cover everything up. It'll kind of dominate. So put some shadow on this side as well. And if you feel like if it's too much black, and you put too much on there, just dip your brush in your green paint and just paint on top of it. I didn't rinse the brush, so most it'll do is just try to kind of blend it. If you felt like you had too much, I like the darkness, but I am showing you how to blend in some green in your black. So if you felt like it was just too much black for you. I'm just using that green, kind of tone it down if need be. All right. That. Yep, I put too much black on there. It's not what I wanted. Some more green on top of that. All right, so now I want to use that black to, I'm going to switch to my pointer brush. So now I want to put some black in the inside of those 3 flowers. Okay, guys? And then I don't, I'm just going to use pure black. I don't have to worry about rinsing it off or wiping some of it off. It's just, I want it to be the pure black. And I'm making a circle on the inside, but it's not a perfect circle. Just kind of, like I said, making those um, same motions with my brush. I'm just using a pointer brush now. So that's on the areas that I'm really using any black. But if you want to make anything, any shadows a little darker, if you want it to maybe the base of your buds to be kind of darker to make it look like it's dark at the beginning and gets lighter, this is a perfect time to do that. If you wanted to add any more shadows, maybe if you wanted more shadow around your vase or anything like that, because we're pretty much done with the black. But if you wanted to do that, that is an option. Anything, yeah, like that if you wanted to do that. All right. So I'm kind of, and okay. So now I want to switch to white. I do want to put some white in there. I want to show you guys what I'm referring to when I say I want to put my white in there. It's just we're putting our finishing touches on our painting, and that's what my white does. I have some little areas that kind of break it up because I feel like it's kind of dark. So I want to break up some of that with some white, with a lighter color. It's kind of dark. Well, mine is. So I have my white. Put a little bit highlights here in my black, because it's just like if you think about if just like when I'm holding up this, you can see how the light, it's a ring light and it's casting a shadow or a light onto my screen. It's the same thing if maybe if we're trying to emulate the same effect, maybe with where the light would hit this vase. So it may not make sense, but you'll see. And it also kind of makes it look a little more rounder. So that's cool. I have that. You might want to put a little bit, like I said, it's kind of darker in here. I want to throw some, maybe some highlights in there as well to bring those out. And I still the same kind of circular motion that I'm using, because I want the eye to curve around the flower. So I'm kind of doing that. So we're going to throw some of those in on some of this is optional. You just have put some on there and see what you think yours. And especially, I mean, even if you use yellow, you can still throw that white in there if you chose yellow flowers. But, put a few in there and see what you think, if that's working for you. For me, it's working for me. I love it. I love it. I always kind of like adding in the little white accents in there. And actually try to stick to adding those to like your lighter colors, because I still want that variation, the darker to be dark and not. And you can see that I said that, but I did kind of not do what I'm supposed to do on some of them. So don't be a hard head like myself. Okay. Well, just kind of seeing what I'm feeling, kind of like that. Guys, sometimes, You might have to step back a little bit from your painting because you don't. I always tell when we are painting in person. The first thing I say is you're not allowed to judge your painting. Well, first I say you're not supposed to judge your neighbor's painting. And since you guys don't have neighbors, I'm going to tell you not to judge your painting until you're done, until we put those finishing touches on there. Okay, guys. And so if you're not sure, you might have to, like, sometimes, pick up your painting and hold it at arm's length, or even just stand it up against something and then kind of step back to look at it. It looks really different, I promise you. And then also, if you look at your picture in a camera in a screen, it looks way different. So those are my little finishing touches. Also, you can also kind of put on the lighter side of your leaves. That's also an option to kind of give it a little something. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm going to try to see what I think about putting some of those on there. So there. And I would like a little more shadow or highlight on this vase. I might be getting carried away with the lights on the vase. So be careful with that. Watch me do that. But the thing about it is, if you don't like that, if I have too much, I can always go back and cover it up in green. Okay. Giving it a little bit of dimension. And I didn't put anything on this one down here. So let me see what I like about this one. And I'm done with my painting. I would love to see you guys' painting. We don't do a share, usually doing these. Well, my free sessions, we do a share. We get on and we share our paintings, but I'm not going to ask you guys to do that. So, and I did have, it says 6 people. I didn't see. Oh, I keep counting me. Okay. So there were a few that didn't jump on, but that's fine. Again, I'll send out the link and they can paint anytime. I'm sure I believe one of the ladies that signed up, she doesn't always jump on here with me, but she has the link so she can jump in and like I said, you can too if you like, hey, I can perfect it, because painting, it just comes with practice. And if you want to practice that again, you'll have that one. So guys, thanks so much for painting with me. And if you are comfortable with it, you have my email. I would love for you to email me a picture of your painting. And I appreciate you jumping on here with me. And yeah, timing not too bad. I would like to be within an hour, but when we have something with a little more detail and dimension, we might go over an hour. So guys, thanks for painting with me, and I hope you'll paint with me again, and let me know if you have any suggestions or something that you might want to paint. Some of these images I create with AI. I say, hey, AI, create for me a painting such and such and such and such, and that's how I come up with some of my images. But it's been great painting with you, and I appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Deuces.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. See you next time. Where's the end button? Thanks, Judy Ann. See you next time.
Thank you. It's fun.